Okay, so Kwite made his response to the tweet longer. It's been a half an hour since the video and his tweets came out, so if there's any missing information, that's the reason why. Okay, so I posted a video about the situation on the 24th, 2 days after everything came out. He made his response 2 weeks later, and the video is about an hour and a half long with his face on full view. And the tweet that he made is as followed. For the record, everything that has been claimed, I've said, or have done recently is false. In this video, I will do my best to take a comprehensive look into it, with evidence to support what I have to say, with a link to the video being called For the Record. There are about 22 chapters in the video, and I'll go through it by chapters. If it's long, I'll make it into separate videos, which I'll probably do. Chapter 1, Intro. He starts with the allegations saying that the assault against Orion in Florida is false, that he has not made any sexual contact with Orion in any shape or form. He says that he has a lot of evidence to share and a video testimony that Orion gave on about the interaction on February 18, 2018, that directly contradicts the events that Orion has listed. He says that everything will be out of order since he's doing it by severity and not chronologically, and he gives a warning about things that will be discussed, such as SA, transphobia, usage of slurs, racism, general abuse, and other related topics. He starts with when Orion said that he was sexually assaulted by Kwite at the parking lot of the movies when they were going to see Black Panther. He says that this is entirely false and he doesn't know why Orion fabricated this. He then shows a video that was made 4 years ago, about several months after the alleged assault, on September 14, 2018. He shows a clip of it.
Cut to February where we met up for the second time, and I remember it was February because we went to see Black Panther. It was fun, and I distinctly remember him getting out of my car, but stopping midway and saying, "Just remember, I really care about you."
And that's all Orion had to say about that day, which was different than what Orion wrote in the tweet longer. And any sexual contact that Orion had said in the tweet longer was never mentioned in that video, which was only taken months after the alleged assault. He says that it took some time to gather the receipts between the interactions that he and Orion had, with some things Orion had said that contradicts what the receipts say that Kwite has. Chapter 2, My Account of February 18, 2018. He talks about how when they were at a mall, Kwite saw a plushie that he liked and he wanted to buy it as a keepsake for the trip that he had with Orion. Orion wanted to buy the plushie for Kwite, and Kwite stated that he likes to buy his own things. He says that that's when he started to earn money from YouTube, and he wanted to buy it or pay for it using the money that he earned. He said it was a pride thing. And he tells Orion directly that he would feel more comfortable if he buy it himself. Orion then said that he'll only let him buy it if Kwite gives Orion a kiss later, which he then shows a message between the two as the same effect. If he buys snacks for the both of them, for example, or for himself, he'll get a kiss later, showing the date being February 17, 2018, a day before the movie theater incident. He then thought of it as a light-hearted joke and an easy way out for him for just buying his own things. So when they were driving around, Orion brings up the kiss, and Kwite, being a younger kid, I think he was around 17 at the time, he didn't want to back out because he thought of it as a light-hearted joke, but it seemed like Orion didn't, and he didn't want to be rude, so he kissed Orion that one and only time, and which he felt weird about it after. Chapter 3, Black Panther Tax. Next was the movie theater-related acts. So Orion had paid for the movie tickets, and Kwite wanting to pay for something, he asked how much they were. Orion said it was my treat, with resulting in Kwite wanting to pay for his own things and the snacks. He said that he would pay for the snacks since he wanted to contribute to something that both of them could enjoy. So they went back and forth because Orion wanted to pay for the snacks too. Kwite stopped responding, which resulted in a text with the kiss. Orion, still not taking no for an answer, says that if Kwite pays for it, he'll get kissed. And now it gets to a point where Kwite starts to feel uncomfortable because he wants to pay for something while also not getting kissed. He went back to the original video clip on September where Orion said that Since he was the host, he felt like he had to do it since it was his job, while Kwite stated multiple times that he wanted to pay. Kwite then talked about intimacy, where he was the one that got cold feet and was hesitant about it. He didn't want to be intimate with Orion, where it was Orion was the one who was forward about physical intimacy. Even if it was lighthearted, Orion disregarded Kwite's choices and boundaries, even if he was clearly uncomfortable with everything, and stating that directly that he didn't want to. Chapter 4, Orion's Forwardness. So Kwite brings up one of the pictures that Orion used as a defense, which was basically Orion insisting that they hook up. Kwite basically saying no, and Orion cropped out the next responses, which you can see here. Kwite felt uncomfortable, so he stopped responding. He then started talking about the Twitlonger part, where they said if they were single, they would take each other's internet. It was only said a few times, which Kwite didn't agree upon on his side, since he didn't want to do it. It was mentioned back in August of 2017, where Orion first brought it up. Kwite being hesitant, they started to talk about it on call. Next was the second meeting, where Kwite was on vacation with his family. Orion, since lives in Florida, he wanted Kwite to go down south so they could meet up. Kwite just straight up said no, and Orion made fun of his ED, to which he responded, "That's why I don't hang out with you." On October 18, 2017, Kwite missed a call from Orion, and apparently this is how Orion jokes with Kwite. He then showed times where he did respond to the flirting that Orion gives, and talked about the description of the video, where it was a Google Drive link that showed over 500 screenshots and videos of just messages between them through Skype, Twitter, texting, Discord, with the Twitter picture just being Kwite's side since it looks like Orion deleted his. He then started talking about the dating thing. In total, they were only dating for about 2 days, and before they met up in Florida, Kwite's boyfriend broke up with Kwite, and then 2 days after, then got with someone in their friend group. Kwite thought it was a rash decision or a rebound to just be with Orion since the breakup was so fresh. Chapter 5, Sexual Anxiety. He talks about how, as recording this video, he has not done it with anyone, and that he was close one time, but he could not perform. He told Orion not to tell anyone since he felt shame from it. And he talked about how he was essayed himself twice, once before the accusations by a coworker as a minor, and once after in a club. Chapter 6, Orion's Original Review. Okay, so in the actual interview, Orion gives a timeline which doesn't make any sense, which is a year earlier. And going back about the interview, Orion openly talks about Kwite's self-harm. And in his whole YouTube career, he never talked about it publicly, and how can you? Orion lies about the meeting in 2016 when in the Twitter messages and Discord, they first started talking in 2017. Orion talks about how they met up in 2017 February, but the only time they met up in February was in 2018 when Black Panther first came out. In the original interview, Orion says Kwite stopped talking to Orion about 2 weeks after Black Panther, while the Twitlonger said several months after. Both were wrong. It was about a month after Black Panther came out. They didn't talk for about 3 days, and then had a call, with Orion sending messages like these. And in the interview, Orion said that he randomly got a call from Kwite. Well, in reality, Orion called Kwite. He didn't pick up. About 2 hours later, he had, a 10-minute call basically talking about Orion. Kwite talked about the whole Orion situation to one of their friends, and that friend sent a 5-paragraph message to Orion about how disgusting they were. In March, Kwite gave reasons why he wanted to cut off Orion, which, Orion was being emotionally and mentally draining, and Kwite couldn't work on his own mental health or even his own life. Orion said that Kwite was hanging out with a new friend group even more than his old, and Orion even naming a few friends. Kwite after started asking these friends if they felt the same way, while in reality, these friends never talked about these problems that they had. And they agreed with the reason why Kwite was cutting off Orion. The guy who made the September video, originally, he unlisted his video probably about a few months after, until the new allegations came out back in February, or technically the old allegations. And the tweets that he made, basically saying that why he got rid of the video, saying that, he made the video back in 2019, when originally it was posted in 2018. It looks like the people trying to destroy his career can't even keep their story straight. Chapter 7. Orion's disregard for boundaries. Honestly, Orion really doesn't care about Kwite's boundaries at all. He doesn't feel comfortable, and he has to explain why he's not comfortable. And it seems like a multiple type of thing where, Orion might not even care. Also, with the picture thing, right? Orion's thing was he takes so many pictures of me, but I can't take any pictures of him other than the ones I don't share or post, which is a complete lie. So Orion took pictures of Kwite after begging him using, the word friend to basically, use it. He had fear and anxiety of these pictures getting leaked. But since they were friends, he trusted Orion. Orion lied to him and sent these pictures to people Kwite didn't even know. So Orion had pictures while Kwite didn't even take any pictures at all. And so, against his better judgment, Orion used these pictures as credibility for his essay accusations, which is kind of messed up. You have a friend who's a personal person. He has this fear of his pictures getting leaked, and his quote-unquote friend uses as leverage to destroy his life. Orion made 2 tweets about it, basically saying, oh, I saw the video. I'll treat it with respect. Second tweet being like, oh, there's already lies in the videos. Here's undeniable proof of my medical paper. The medical paper was fake. People called that out. Also, people are saying the amount of evidence that Kwite has is amazing. And that, Orion's probably is lying. Also, Kwite doesn't like prolonged contact. And Orion was basically leaning on him the whole time they were watching a movie. Which seemed like a way that Orion wanted to get back at his father. Because it seemed like Orion's father actually abused them the whole time Kwite's known Orion for. Also, when he was getting larger on the Discord, Kwite was basically modding people that he knew and friends, right? He modded Orion, and it seemed like Orion really wasn't fit for his job. After Orion got demoted, Orion started posting personal information that Kwite considered personal, and it got to multiple times where Kwite basically had to tell Orion to stop. Chapter 8. Deleted messages. So he talks about the tweet that Orion made, basically saying that, he's going to delete all the messages and deactivate his account. So instead of, showing the messages, right, Orion basically showed that it was Kwite that he was messaging. And I wonder why he didn't show any messages. So Kwite made a statement on his Discord basically saying he didn't deactivate his account and was starting, to make statements. When Orion saw that, Orion basically said, he used a bot to delete the messages. That's why, he didn't show any proof. So just in case, Kwite archived all his Discord messages and texts into that Google Drive link. Chapter 9. Time messages. So in the tweet longer, Orion basically, said that all the messages deleted after a certain amount of time, and that Kwite wanted to do calls so that he didn't leave a trace. So also all the Skype messages that he did were also in the drive. And the thing is, most of the calls were started by Orion, majority calls that they had. Chapter 10. Slurs. So the reason why all the messages were one-sided for the drive Twitter messages is that Orion's original Twitter account was banned. So really, that's why there's only one side. Also, if you check the Twitter messages, Kwite has never misgendered Orion, nor has he called Orion anything other than Orion. So the thing about you belittling Orion using the dead name isn't true. Also, Kwite didn't even use the D slur, but Orion himself did. Almost word for word, Orion said what Orion stated that Kwite said a year before the tweet longer even came out. But it turns out Orion used Asian slurs against Kwite himself. Since he's half Filipino, Orion used the C word and stereotypes. And it got to the point where, Kwite's and Orion's friends were basically DMing Kwite, asking if he was alright with Kwite or with Orion was saying. And he said he was, basically fine with it, but it did hurt to a certain point. Orion's codependence intro. So no longer when it said that they shared mental issues together, which brought them closer. In reality, it was just a one-sided trauma dump from Orion to Kwite. He also had to make another warning where it was things to be talked about, which is self-harm, detailed general abuse, suicide ideation, and codependence, and other related topics. So Orion blamed the fact that they, stopped talking to each other because of Orion's gender identity, where in reality it was basically just Orion emotionally and mentally draining Kwite to a point where he wanted to just cut things off. Chapter 12 continued. So Kwite was busy with a podcast where he had to make a video right after. So when he was able to get some free time to actually message Orion to see, what Orion wanted, Orion didn't feel good about himself because the person that Kwite was interviewing had better conversations with, Kwite and Orion. So it made Orion feel like he wasn't good enough. And what Orion experienced in the past, Kwite felt like he had to do something before Orion did something drastic. And whenever Orion did something like this, Kwite would feel emotionally drained afterwards. Because it all started a month or two after they started talking in the first place. And when Orion was basically just trauma dumping to Kwite, he felt like he had to do something if, Orion was basically just trauma dumping to Kwite on a person that they've only known, that Orion only knew for like a month. Chapter 13, social relationships. So in the part where, about the making the sprites and everything, right? So Kwite appreciated it, and he felt like he had to compensate Orion in some sort of way, because Orion spent some time actually making them. But Orion said that, that was fine, talking to Kwite was compensation enough. But then, in the longer part, it seemed like Orion wanted Kwite to actually use the sprites for like possible months, or maybe the rest of his career. But, that was never openly voiced. And the part of the longer where Orion said that he basically made, Kwite's persona is false. In a deleted video for around his 500 subscribers special, he did some sort of face reveal where it was basically him in the green sweater that had a turtleneck built in, and he used that as a mask with sunglasses. So he was using it even before he even met Orion, a month before they even started talking. And, Kwite was confused on why Orion would take credit for something before, he even met Orion. He also brings up the love bombing thing. So if Kwite was doing something else and he wasn't actively responding to Orion, it was abandonment. But if he then started talking to her later, then it was love bombing, which somehow he was manipulating Orion to make him do something. Chapter 14, March 2018 call. So he brings up the fact that, when Kwite was gaining popularity, he started ghosting Orion. But he was ghosting Orion even before then he gained any major popularity. Because whenever Kwite was hanging with anyone other than Orion, he was happy. And when he went back to Orion, then there would be fear and trauma of Orion going to do something drastic. Because he always had to reassure that Orion was enough. Because he was also dealing with his own mental problem at that time. So March 2018, he starts to ghost Orion. And that's what leads to the call. So originally he didn't talk to Orion for about a few days. He got a message from one of their friends basically explaining what's happening with Orion and how they really need to talk. So he decides to set up the call because of that message from the friend. And when things didn't really go his way, he wasn't able to express everything he wanted to, because Orion would either talk over him or deny anything of happening. Then he would also critic Kwite. So he ended the call and denied the mentorship or the mediator because he realized nothing was going to happen. Chapter 5, escalation. So Kwite realized he made the right choice because the next day Orion was basically just bashing on Kwite, basically saying, "How could he do it to me?" Kwite asked his friend if he made the right choice by saying everything that happened, and that friend basically sending the 5-paragraph message to Orion. Orion basically on the private Twitter basically still just bashing on Kwite and saying that he can destroy Kwite's career. So then, before Kwite even got big, Orion went to a YouTuber called Progress, and basically he made a video on basically just bashing Kwite. Orion and Progress both of their Twitters got banned, so Kwite couldn't see the receipts, which was not added in, his response video. Orion also made friends with people who didn't like Kwite in public. So Orion went to multiple smaller YouTube channels to make a video about Kwite, and used the messages, like the 5-paragraph one, without any context behind it, to also bash on the friend. Orion went to the friend group to basically get them to turn on Kwite and the friend for cutting contact with Orion, and basically started using all of Kwite's secrets as ammunition. Chapter 16, Lord Bung. So Lord Bung was a friend of both Kwite's and Orion's, and was the mediator for their call with each other in September. So Bung made a response. Also, on the side note, Bung made a community post basically saying that Kwite, was an angry drunk Orion and Bung were close friends at the time, and also the person who was a mediator, who had a side from the start, because apparently Orion and Bung were dating each other. Also, Orion was working or helping Bung with the containment videos that Bung was making. So looking at the newest videos of Bung, which was I think posted 6 months ago, it went from everyone just like, being excited, waiting for Bung to make the next video, to now everyone just bashing Bung for basically, siding with a liar, knowingly siding with a liar, and basically helping to destroy Kwite's career, even though he did nothing wrong. Because it's like this: a mediator is supposed to be someone who's neutral on both sides, not the significant other of one person. Chapter 17, Final Call. So no longer, where it said Kwite was angry, he was justifiably angry. He got a call from someone who emotionally and mentally drained him for months to a year, who wanted to destroy his YouTube career publicly, and talked about his self-harm and how he emotionally abused Orion without any evidence, and that they cut off contact because of its newfound success. Kwite talked about the mediator, who, when they were on the call, was in the middle of a hurricane, and he had family over, which is, more dangerous than a random call. So his basement was flooded where all his equipment was, so he told them, and also told Orion, since they were going to have the call. But then, when Kwite brought up sending photos thing, with proof that Orion was sending photos to people, Orion said nothing about it, about, sharing or posting or anything. So, that part's a lie on the TwitLonger. Talking about the kiss, Kwite said that he was uncomfortable and told his therapist about it. In the TwitLonger, Orion wrote that he was gaslighting him, and that, Kwite made it sound like Orion was leading him on and assaulted him instead. When it was Orion who basically wanted sexual favors the whole time, while Kwite was just trying to buy his own things, and he was uncomfortable, since, kissing is considered, technically a sexual favor. And apparently Orion said that they kissed more than once, and that, basically saying that Kwite was wrong and that he wanted it. So everything Kwite remembered was wrong, and it was his fault to begin with. And that's when he started to get justifiably angry. And the part where they said that, Danny had to calm down Kwite and he apologized was entirely not true. His dad held on to Kwite because he was having a panic attack. So he didn't get to talk about everything he wanted because he was more stressed out about a hurricane than a random call with someone who's trying to destroy his life. Chapter 18, Rekindle. After Orion asked Kwite if they can still be friends after the call, which is honestly the dumbest thing, you have someone who basically try to help destroy your career, spreading lies and everything, breaking friendships, to then ask to be friends. So he was a bigger person, and he tried one last time using Twitter messages, which you can see, but everything got banned. So he had to show what they're talking about, since the images are kind of odd, since he has to go in the actual files, so the depths of the messages. So they talk about it, if they can still be friends in a possible way. Kwite keeps it a buck and says no promises. So he tries for a month, but for him it felt like it was forced on his end, and that he couldn't just get past everything. Since lies and comments about self-harm were made public. So Orion, asked for a call, and Kwite just straight up says, he wasn't comfortable, saying that he can forgive Orion for some things, but he can't forget everything. Chapter 19, Further Escalation. Time goes on about a year, 2018, odd comments about, you're a bad person. There's this one guy who was basically from early 2018 to early 2022 was just saying the worst things. And then basically just calling him a sexual assaulter before anyone. And that person was, admitted to be a fan of Orion's. Again, it gets to the point where, it's kind of odd where Orion, outing basically everything, made a whole story, showed images of Kwite's face, right? But says he's not going to show any proof to keep his anonymity, which is dumb. You're outing someone for essay. You're showing pictures of his face, but you won't show any of the proof. Also, topic on crimes. Orion says Kwite committed a crime, which is an essay, and is now proven to be false, basically. But Orion was faking medical papers, which is also a crime, so what's with that? You also have that label, which Kwite was scared to go outside because of that label, and he might never recover. He also talks about the tags of the allegation using the tag of fan art, so anyone who's looking for art could see the reply. And Orion made it so that only people that Orion knew could reply. Chapter 20, Conclusion. So cutting off Orion was the best thing for Kwite's happiness and leaving his toxic relationship. It seemed like, at the time, Orion felt like it was fine for Kwite to be physically harmed. And, when everything failed, Orion went to the next best thing, which is accuse him for SA. Chapter 21, Slajo. So I think some people knew about this, but apparently Kwite and a few other people were trying to frame Slajo for an essay that happened, I think, in 2019. So apparently multiple people came to Kwite, basically telling him and showing him all types of evidence. And, after he realized it, he failed Slajo as a friend, which was, what people are doing to Kwite. Which was, basically confront Slajo before he can even do a response and talk about it. And he talked about how guilty he felt for what happened, for what he did against Slajo. Chapter 22, Parting Words. He talks about this being the end of the video, and he hopes that the evidence will clear his name. But he knows that, the label of being a sexual assaulter will never leave his name or career. He talks about how some people actually distanced themselves away from him and might actually never talk to him again. He talks about how he's going to take some time off at YouTube, minimum a month, and he wonders if he might ever come back with everything that's happened. This is my outlook on the whole thing. Orion basically drains Kwite mentally and emotionally. For months, Kwite cuts contact. Orion helps people, basically just, bashing on him. Everything fails. Orion makes up a crime. No evidence at all other than they talked once with a whole twit longer. People respond with their own essays, and Kwite gets bashed for weeks with his face, out in the open. He responds with an hour and a half video explaining everything with proof and with the possible over 700 pictures and videos, with the amount of people then deleting what they said before because they realized, Orion was in the wrong and Kwite was right. And it's disgusting that people are still defending, even though Orion faked medical papers just to get people on his side. Because you have people saying, like, oh, if you're staying neutral, then you're as worse as the person who committed the crime, which is dumb. You only have one side to go off of, and that one side had no evidence. That's about it.